You're never far from race and racial issues, particularly in the South.
And sometimes there's little reminders out there for you. When I first got the job, the day after, a gentleman came up to me and stuck his hand out. And I stuck my hand out to shake his hand, and he said, "Hey, I just want you to know that I called the dean of students and I told him you weren't qualified for the job." To hear somebody say that, I mean, it kind of tells you, hey, that's what I think about you.
That was the clip from the new documentary SCRUM, which follows Queen's University of Charlotte's rugby coach Frank McKinney through his season as the coach of that team, his experience building a championship from scratch and being one of the first Black college rugby coaches in the U.S. Coach McKinney joins us now. Coach, welcome to Takeline.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, Coach, welcome. And, in 3 years, you took a non-existent rugby program at Queen's University to a national championship. So how close, or perhaps how far was your timeline? Like, did you expect to achieve that certain level of success that fast? Like, what was your thought process going in?
I'm going to be honest. When I started, national championship was never one of my goals. So in rugby, you need 15 guys to be on the field. So my short-term goal was to get 15 players so I could field a team. The school is 60+% women. So I can't really go out and pick up players. So for me, the goal is just to get a team on the field.
In the doc, you talk a lot about the kind of pressure from that you felt in this experiment at Queen's College with rugby, and specifically with yourself as the coach of this team. How do you deal with that pressure, and how did you resist that pressure? And specifically, what kind of microscope did you feel yourself under?
So there's two different things to look at. And you'll see this in the documentary. One, I'm the only male African-American coach at the school. There's 32 sports, and I'm the only male African-American coach. The other thing is, in the rugby community, I am one of, I don't think there's very many. If there's two or three, I'd be shocked, but I'm one of the only African-American male coaches. So with both of those, as I step on the field and as I step on the campus, for me, I've got to make sure that the standards are higher. And that's because, when I look at that, being an African-American, I want more coaches, not only just in rugby, but coaches at the school and coaches in the U.S.
I love it. So you talked about it a lot. You said you're one of the only African-American men that are coaching in that school. And so we're going to talk more about your team, but we also love to hear about you specifically. Like, how does a Black man get involved in rugby at first? Because it's just not necessarily a sport that you see Black men in.
You don't. So what happened to me is I had an interesting journey into rugby. I played a lot of sports as a kid. And then my dad was a big baseball player and a big football player, and that was his dream. And my dad went out to sea. And when he went out to sea, he was in the Navy. My mom got me in soccer at 5 years old. So I played soccer, and I tried to play some other sports, but soccer ends up taking over when you get decent at a sport. So my goal was to play soccer in college. So I had a college that was interested in me. I showed up, and I didn't do any of the off-season workouts. I showed up, I was out of shape. And what happened was I ended up not playing soccer that season. And I ended up finding these rugby guys and ended up playing rugby in undergrad. Fast forward, I was the captain and then the actual president of the club. And then I ended up playing in a men's league and ended up playing in a semi-pro league and fell in love with the game. But I'm going to be honest, when I played in the men's league, I rarely saw people of color. And I'm not just saying African-American. I am saying Asian, Latino, you name it. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
So when you did see somebody like that, you were like, hey, hey, we're friends. But I had this goal and dream of getting people of color, not just only African-American, but people from all over the world, people from different socioeconomic backgrounds to play rugby and play on a team and have one common goal.
If it was reversed and there was a white coach coaching a predominantly African-American team, nobody would ask the question, how do you relate to your players, right? But did you feel that, like, question from the people that that were around the team? Like, how is a coach going to relate to players as the only African American, one of the only African American coaches in rugby, and one of the only male coaches at the college? Like, was that a concern, and did you feel that, and how did you try to diffuse that question from people?
Yeah, I think if you, I tell my players, you need to be game tight, right? If you're game tight, if you have lesson plans together, you're running the right practices, if you're running the right travel plans, players have all the meals and everything's sorted out. And we don't ever talk about color. We honestly never talk about color. My goal is that when the players look at their teammates, they never have to think about color. They look at what their body of work has been to get on the field. And it's the same thing with coaching. And that's a goal for myself, is to say, hey, that's what I want. And I bring in assistant coaches. I've got a diverse assistant coach pool that we actually bring in. So for me, diversity all around, because I think that's our strength. When you watch the movie and when you see our team play, our diversity, I think, is our biggest strength.
No, you talk about being game tight, and I couldn't agree more. There's nothing players care about more than knowing what you're doing. You have everything under control. Yeah. But we know there's certain things in the sports you can't control. So kind of to follow up on that, what were your facility conditions like? Like, what did your athletes respond to that? Like, what? Because that's something you can be game tight and you can control that. But other stuff like that, like, what was that like there?
So some of the facilities and some of the access we have are the same as some other teams. What you'll see in the movies, we actually practice on a playground, and the playground is actually next to the actual school. Just about all the other teams practice on a turf facility that has locker rooms and has a lot of accoutrements, that a lot of different things accessed. What's funny is we have always practiced on the playground, and to me, it's almost put a chip on my shoulder. But I don't think the players see it as a playground, because when we have the cones and the pads and the lesson plan and they step on the field and we start getting into it, I don't think they see it as a playground. And that's just the experience that we've kind of set for the players. But it is different than what the other teams practice on.
Crazy. There's a moment in the stock where you're working with your players, and then you say, okay, we ran this drill, and you ask them to be accountable for their own lack of success in that particular drill if they felt that. And you say, I know I didn't go all out in that. And then you start doing push-ups or what have you. How important is that in your particular coaching style, to ask players to assess whether they have been giving everything? Like, is that an important strategy for the way you approach this?
So in that scene, I was actually, I used to practice with the players. So I would do the push-ups, I would do sit-ups, I would do some of the stuff that they would do. And what happened was it was a preseason, and preseason is brutal. It's 2 days, it's 6 a.m. mornings. It's brutal. But what happened during the session is I felt like I didn't get all my push-ups done, and I didn't do all my bodyweight squats. And I felt like some of the players had tapped out. And my whole thing, the message I was sending to the players is there's no shortcuts in life, right? There's no shortcuts. You got to get up and grind every day. So as the coach, I've got to show them that, hey, I might have skipped some steps in that because I was tired, or I didn't like the quality of my push-ups. So I want to show them, hey, I'm going to do it. And that's when I told all the players, hey, we're going to do it together. And I said, you're going to let your coach do push-ups by himself? Everybody gets down, the entire team gets down. The assistant coaches are kind of looking at me like, man, he's crazy. I don't think I'm not, the assistant coach looking good. I'm not going to get on and do some push-ups. I'm going to let Coach Fred do the push-ups. Yeah. So I get down, do the push-ups. The whole team does. We do some body weight squats. Just the coaches didn't do them, but I did them, and we knocked it out. But it was a life lesson, and it was something caught on film that I didn't even think about. It's just a message that I'm always giving the players. We got to wake up every day, and you can't skip steps.
No, it's true. And I always remember when the coaches get in the drills, that's the worst. It's the worst when y'all do that, because now you don't want to be that person that lets the coach do better than you. And now the coach is like, look, if I can do it, you can do it too. And, so I don't like when the coaches get in the drills, but I do like the motivation behind it. And look, you've walked the walk and talked the talk. You've won a national championship, so you've done your job. And this might not be necessarily your job, but do you see rugby becoming that diverse sport that we see more in America? Do you see that going there? There's a film out now, and a lot of people may not know, but do you feel that we could get there as rugby as a sport becoming more diverse in America?
So Renee, let me answer your first question. You talked about the coaches getting in the drills. I've gotten to a point in my life where I've realized that these guys are training to be good, and I'm not really training to be good. So what I do is I've hopped out of the drills. I don't get in the drills. I don't get into the drills anymore. I sit my old butt over on the sideline.
Thank you.
Renee, great call out. So I don't do that anymore. What I would tell you about the diversity in rugby in the U.S., to me, I want it to be diverse. And I think it starts with what we do in my program. And that's the only thing I can control. I can control what my program does. I can't control what other programs do. But I feel like if people see African-American coach walking out in the field, if they see a diverse team and kids that are Caucasian and African-American and Latino are all after tries is like a touchdown. It's a score. If they're seeing that, then all of a sudden they're going to be like, well, we should have a more diverse team. And if there's more access to rugby in different cities and more teams are created, and then people see coaches and say, hey, I'm hurt now, or I can't play anymore. So now I want to get into coaching. And if we can give more opportunities to people of all different backgrounds, all different races, then the chance for it to be more of a diverse sport is big. And if you research U.S. rugby, we're probably 13, 14, 15 in the U.S. And the top teams are historically New Zealand, South Africa, England, Australia, teams like that. And we have a large gap to catch up with them. And that's, I think, something that's going to push the sport to be diverse.
Could you say
the film?
Oh, sorry. One more. I didn't mean to cut you off. Just give sell us on rugby. For those who are not into the magic of the sport, that we want to grow this sport in the U.S., we want to see it become more diverse. Part of that is making it more popular. Coach, sell us on the magic and the majesty of rugby. What is great about it?
Yeah, so I would tell you, it's like gladiators. It's like the football team takes off their pads, takes off their helmets, takes off all that stuff on, and the only thing they've got is either some tape, and then they've got to run the ball over the actual line to score, just like you would do in football. But there's no blocking, right? So it's more of a chess game. 15-a-side rugby to me is a chess game. So if you like big hits, if you like fast action, tough guys. If you watch soccer and guys take 10 minutes after they're hurt and they're like, my leg, I can't walk again. And then they get the other guy gets the card and he gets up and walks again. And you're like, what are you doing? When you watch rugby, the guys are trying not to stay down because they want to get back in the play and play. So if you like tough sports, fast sports, rugby is your sport.
Ooh-wee, I like that. That got me turned up. The film is called SCRUM. It's available to stream now at scrummovie.com. Coach, good luck on your season, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me, and be on the lookout for the movie, be on the lookout for our team, and just thank you guys for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.